Hi, Joanna. Great connecting with you. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today and learning more about your consultant business as well. So can you tell us a bit about your background and how did you get started in digital marketing?
Yeah, so I actually, sort of by accident, so in high school, I participated in the paper zine movement, which was like when you cut up paper and did a lot of writing and like basically created little homemade magazines. And then when I was around 14, I taught myself HTML, which I'm in my late 30s.
Wow.
I'm in my late 30s, so it was before, it was taught in school. It was kind of, a while ago.
Yes.
And I started a website for young women because and through that, I actually realized that I could connect with people from all over the world. I grew up in a rural place, but suddenly I had like the access to the whole world and to connecting to people from all over. So that was a really cool thing that happened. And then when I graduated from undergrad, fast forward, I was still doing the website. And I actually taught business English in Prague. And then when I came back, I started applying to various nonprofits. And one of the areas that I always found they was always sort of a weak spot was digital marketing. So I would always be the one to volunteer to do any kind of digital marketing, whether it was email marketing or writing for the website or any number of things. So sort of by accident.
So pretty much you're starting this at very young age. That's amazing though.
Yeah, actually, so through the website, it was really cool. One of my earliest experiences, it was when Twitter was fairly new. And I had, I think at the time, a few thousand followers. And this young designer from Hong Kong actually reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do a fashion show with them. And I was like, sure, I have no idea how to do a fashion show, but that sounds really interesting. And so I ended up actually going and reaching out to a bunch of local stores as well and local designers and put on this fashion show that got a lot of press. And and it was just really cool. Like never had heard of them and they reached out and I loved their designs. So,
but that was pretty cool. So now about the women community, what was it about really?
It was really everything. So it was a lot of, women's empowerment and, going your own path. But I've always loved style. So there was, style, fashion, personal style. And then a lot of health and fitness too. So I've always been interested in sports. So, and then a lot of writing from other women. So I would, if someone mentioned, I would love to write something. So there was actually a woman who wrote a wonderful cooking feature on the website. So it was like a monthly feature. So that was really cool.
But why did you close it? Did you close that one or you still have it?
Yeah, I think in some ways I don't know. I kind of outgrew it. It had, it was called Hip Chick Scene. And I kind of outgrew the name and I thought I'd rather just do something else. And, also like not having time at the time. At that time, I was living and working in Prague and my classes were kind of all over the place. So I didn't have a whole lot of time. But I think it was also, at that point, it had been like 10 years. So I think it had run its course for me.
Do you implement the same kind of method into your new business right now?
Yes and no. I think so for me, yes, in that I think the whole process of running a website, I learned how to market a site and how to, I also had an email that I sent out when I was like 17. I was creating like email newsletters. It's kind of an accidental digital marketer, I guess. And so I think that, in many ways, this was all before I realized that, wait a minute, I could actually do this as a career. In undergrad, I studied cultural anthropology, and I've always loved other cultures and travel and learning about people and their stories. So, so for me, I think I actually find that like my background in anthropology has been really helpful too, because a big part of marketing is understanding people and understanding
Yes.
cultures and how we relate to each other. So, yeah, I mean, I think I use some aspects. I think
You do.
never underestimating, the online connection, and also being able to tell stories, and like storytelling is such an important part of marketing. So, yeah.
And you've been doing that since you were young.
Yes.
So now, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start Joanna Tanger Consulting LLC?
Yeah. So, I guess so. It happened originally a few years ago. I was working for this global public health organization, adolescent health organization, and I absolutely loved the organization, loved my coworkers. But unfortunately, I had been accepted to grad school, and I needed to be making more money. So I ended up going to another position, and right away knew it wasn't for me. And so I remember reaching out to my former boss at this organization and saying, "Oh, actually, I might need a a reference sooner than I realized." And she was like, "Well, actually, we would love to hire you if you have any availability as a consultant." And I was like, "Okay, done." It paid a lot more, than as an employee, and I really just needed, funds for grad school because I was at that point it had started, and so did that for a while, like off and on while I was in grad school. And then when I graduated from Johns Hopkins University, I actually started looking at jobs, and I was just not inspired. I'd go to apply and I'd be in an interview and they'd ask me, why do you want this job? And in the back of my mind, I'd be thinking, gosh, I really don't.
But I'll take the money.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you I don't know, I wasn't inspired, I guess. And at the time, I started talking to my husband. So he's also an entrepreneur, and he has a successful business. And it's like, it seemed like the happiest you were was actually when you were working as a consultant. Why don't you do that? And I think for me, it was, getting over that initial fear of starting a business, and feeling like you have to know everything when you're going into something, which is not the case. You definitely learn as you go. But so I decided, okay, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to create an LLC. I got my first client, and then I got another client, and then it was like it slowly grew from there. And they were all like long-term clients, which was nice for stability. So,
but one thing about it, though, when you say that you were scared about going to a business, but you had a business already. Maybe you didn't treat it as a business, but you did.
So it's so funny you'd say that, because that's actually something that I've realized since. So this was actually in March 2022, so fairly recently that I started the LLC. But I realized that over the last year. I was like, it's really funny because if there's one theme in my life, it's being an entrepreneur, like from high school through, college. And then at any point I'd be like, I jump at working for myself. So it is really funny that you'd say that.
Yeah, but it is true. Yeah, mm-hmm. It is true. Yeah. Even when you work as a consultant, you work for yourself. You didn't work for the company.
Right.
So you were already on your own.
I know. And I think that like I think for me, I never really pursued or aggressively pursued like getting new clients and building a business, because it was that like fear of failure, if I'm being honest. And I think getting over that initial fear of failure and fear that you have to know everything right out of the gates, and that's not the case. And if I look at the website, I mean, I learned and went as I learned and grew the website, and so yeah.
The best thing about it, failure is like the best thing that can happen in your life. Like I mean, like, I don't go out and look for it. Don't get me wrong. I don't do that. But when it's happened, I get to stop myself and ask myself, why did I fail this? And I always learn something new and something I can teach someone else. And I think that, yeah, we should be scared of it because sometimes it can, oof, God knows. Need a lot of crying in the bed. But also I think that what you are doing, you're creating your own value, the things that you love, the things that you enjoy. And also you can spend more time with your husband. So you don't have to worry about somebody say, hey, you got to be at the office until 6 p.m. tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. And I think entrepreneurship, I look at it as that freedom to decide, I choose who I want to work with. And so I'm also working with organizations and companies that I really strongly care about and want them to succeed. And I'm fully invested in their success too. And it is true. Like, I think of the times I failed in my life, and it always like pushed me towards something better.
Exactly.
Like, there was never a time where I failed and like just completely crashed and that was it. And it's always been that next, like, okay, that didn't work out, but what's going to be next? Like, what do I want to do?
Usually I just say next.
Yeah, it kind of gives you the freedom to also reflect on what you want. And
and why did you fail? And then understand it and try not to make that happen again. But at the end of the day, there's always something to learn from it. That's how I just see it, always.
So true.
So now, can you tell us a little bit about the company, the services it offers?
Yeah, so I provide, Joanna Tanger Consulting LLC provides marketing and digital strategy solutions for nonprofits, small businesses, and startups. At the moment, it's mainly nonprofits. That's especially where I'm kind of pulled. But I also love working with startups. And some of the services that I provide, it really is, again, the beauty of being an entrepreneur and selecting working with specific clients. Sometimes it's developing, marketing strategy plans. Sometimes it's creating content. Sometimes it's working on fundraising plans and corporate sponsorship programs, or public relations or social media marketing. Other times it's reviewing website or website redesign and looking at SEO. And sometimes it's actually just training staff. So I've had some clients that really just want some help, or they want, hey, can you help out a member of staff who's doing email marketing and maybe not sure of best practices. So it's really runs quite a variety. So yeah.
So you can go in full where you is in a long term, but you can also go in and like in the short term, you just do ABC and you get out.
Yeah.
But may I ask why nonprofit is your number one main client?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's, a lot of the larger digital agencies, they charge a lot more as the only person. I can actually charge a little less, which means I'm more, I can work more within their budget. And I also do see that there's a great need for nonprofits in that space. Again, with marketing, what I see often happen is marketing is split between multiple positions. So it's not actually owned by anyone. So it's always kind of the afterthought. And because I have a nonprofit background, I think I'm also drawn to
The nonprofit.
Yeah.
So now when it's come to your services, you can do anything from SEO to digital marketing, like social media, newsletters, and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you just teach them how to do it, or do you do it for them also?
It can vary. So there are some that I'm actually implementing, and there are others where I am like the strategic advisor. So I really don't have any preference for both. I think I definitely like being involved in the strategy and creating the plan. But then I also, at times implement if there's no one on staff to do it. It's definitely something I can help with.
But do you have to? Do they have to be in the United States or anywhere in the world?
So they're currently in the United States. So my first, the first client that I worked with, the public health organization that I was referring to earlier. So they are based in the US and have a main office in South Africa. So I do find it's a little easier to work with organizations in the US, but
Okay, but you also work with the location in Africa.
yeah, but they also had like an office in the United States.
In the United States. So now, can you walk us through like your process for working with a new client? Like for example, from consultation to like the final delivered to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first step is always to have like a discovery call. So, sometimes they reach out, they will say what they need. So I'll have some sort of idea of what they're looking for. But often, or not often, but sometimes it's also thinking, this is what we actually want, or this is our main goal, but we're not sure how to get there. So that's something that we work with in that initial discovery call. I'll ask about, the goals, their goals for the year, if they have a strategic plan, and I'll ask for any like specific materials like that, like the strategic plan, for example, if there is one that in existence. And then from there, I'll develop sort of recommendations and suggested next steps. And if that's something that they are comfortable with and excited about, we'll move forward. And then one of the starting points that I like 99% of the time really work with is doing a marketing audit. So looking at their website, social media, email marketing, any printed materials, any messaging, essentially anything, fundraising appeals, if they're a nonprofit, Google ads, basically anything that for any of their key audiences. And I will go through it and see, is the messaging aligned? Is, again, like the social media, for example, is it actually align with like the fundraising goals or whatever, or is it just more of that? Well, we need to be on social media.
Yeah, I heard that a lot. We need to post on social media.
Yeah, like are you on platforms where your audience actually is? So, for example, if their main audience is, Gen Z millennials and they're on Facebook, that's probably one of the problems, for example, or something like that. But just, yeah. And then from there, I'll actually create a report just highlighting, where they are and some suggested like recommendations, and, go through the report and develop some additional like next steps.
And take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and with a lot of my like longer term clients, we'll have regular meetings like every other week to check in or once a month or whatever works for them. And we'll have like certain, based on the initial plan that I've created, like we'll have, here's where we should be and measurable objectives. And so they know how to, again, measure success.
So now do you also take over let's say the social media, like the LinkedIn page or Facebook page and handle it yourself, like do all the scheduling and creating all the content?
Yeah. So for some organizations, I do create content. For others, they have someone on staff, or sometimes we'll split it too. So depending on program. So it's again, whatever they need. It's really up to what they need.
But now what set you apart from other firms that's doing the exact same thing you are doing?
Mm-hmm. So I think for me being, again, like the one person, I have complete flexibility, and I can streamline things in a way that if you're going through multiple people, it may get lost in translation. But also, so I have the technical background. I have a background, in web design, my accidental web design. And so I have the technical know-how, and I also have the content and writing well. And, but I also, when I'm looking at a website, I'm thinking about SEO. I'm thinking about, how can we make this into a Google ad? How can, so there's that whole process. So I'm thinking more holistically, I think, than if I'm just like not just, but if I'm a copy editor, if I'm a web designer, I can think everything together. So I think that really builds a lot of value into the strategy.
Yeah, so pretty much when a client join you, you are not just thinking about one thing. You're thinking about the whole picture of this company. So how can I take them from A to C the perfect way possible? And I like the fact that when you said, I know that by accidentally you become a designer, but I think you are the best. There is no way you didn't go to school for it. It's something you taught yourself. So that's when you're passionate about it too, to spend your time learning it. So I think that's one of the things I think that's kind of really puts you apart from other people, is the fact that you care about your clients and you give them a full support. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to look at your website, do your SEO for you, and see ya.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's definitely a holistic approach.
Yeah, I think that it's the best way too, because like you said, it doesn't get lost in the middle of nowhere with other people.
Yeah.
So now, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say too, I think because I've worked on the other end of it, so I've been the person at the organization working with external consultants. So I'm able to also know, how I can best help them. And yeah, I think instead of coming in as a consultant, here's how it's going to be, I'm always listening to their needs.
To their needs, yes. So now, how do you approach creating a successful digital marketing strategy for your clients?
Yeah, so again, it can really, really vary. It's completely dependent on what they need. But I definitely take a very strategic approach. And that's something that I'm really thankful for grad school and, again, being self-taught on many of my things. Going to grad school and having that training for how to actually look and create strategy and measure success and all the moving pieces. So when I'm developing a strategy, I'm looking at, things like the demographics of their audience, the psychographics of their audience. So why people are looking or interested and why they would want to visit like a certain site or, support one company over another, for example. So I'm looking at that why, again, kind of going back to anthropology and understanding the audience and people. And then I'm also like building out depending on what their needs are. So a lot of like market research, I'll look at what their either peer organizations or competitors, depending on the market, and seeing, what's working well for them and doing market research. So I take a very data-driven approach for sure to my work. Everything is looking at data, whether it's Google Analytics, Google Ad Data, email marketing. So it's a very holistic view.
How important is that for a company?
Extremely. And that's actually, so that's one thing that I find over and over again is often, because marketing may be, there may be 3 people on staff who have like each a little piece of marketing. It's often that afterthought. So, measuring, like looking at analytics and looking at data is not really a part of the day-to-day work.
True.
And so I think that having, the initial audit that I do is very, very data heavy, and very, can be very in the weeds depending on if that's something that they're interested in.
Sure.
But it's usually when I get them like the strongest reactions because, for example, there may be one social media platform that they're on where, or a page on the website or something that they're investing a lot of time in, and it is like the least visited or the least revenue driving source for them. So I think that that's really, really important, and data can provide all of that for them. And then also, again, training people on staff. So I always say my goal is to make the team successful. So I don't want to necessarily work forever with everyone, but I want to empower teams to be able to track and measure this success moving forward. And so a big part of my role is also like training staff.
Can they bring you in just to do that?
Oh, sorry.
Can they bring you in just to do the training for the staff?
Sometimes. Mm-hmm.
So when you do training, is that like first you need to look at the company data first, or is it something you just do like, oh, this is how this works, this is how that worked, well, try to avoid doing this?
Yeah, so usually it's like it's either comes up as like a part of a project. So I find that often the organization doesn't necessarily say we need training. There's a couple exceptions, but usually it's oh, this is so cool. Can you help us like learn more about this? And so it comes up in a more informal way and then develops into like actual training sessions or something like that. So, but yeah, I think when looking at data, that's usually when I get the how do you do this? So yeah, and I love the data nerd, so I really
Why do I feel like you love teaching it too?
Yeah. I do. I think, well, because I taught business English in my early 20s. It was like my first job out of undergrad. So
You taught that?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. You shouldn't be scared to go in business because it seems like you know it upside down. So, yeah. So how do you? What's next for your company? Any exciting plans, or are you planning on bringing new team members in? What is your plan for the future?
Yeah, so I would love to scale the business more and bring in another team member, and then also create a number of resources. So I'm starting to work on a blog on my website and provide some tips and tricks. So I'd love to, yeah, I think the main goals are definitely to scale the business, and then work on creating more resources. Like I'd love to have reports and best practices and kind of grow like a library of resources. And then maybe, I don't know, I'm kind of toying with starting a YouTube channel that kind of touches on like some best practices too. And so we'll see.
So don't be like me, because I remember when my staff said, you do a lot of interviews with women. Why you never publish them? Well, there's a big reason for that, because I don't like being in camera.
Yeah. I think that's my problem is I like to be behind the scenes. Like
Guilty of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I want to be like the kind of the mover, like moving in the background and not necessarily the one presenting. And I had a speech impediment when I was little too. So I feel like public speaking or being on camera is always something that I've shied away from. So
that sounds like me. I remember when I did my first podcast interview, and then the guest was sitting there. I'm like, well, what do I do next now? Oh, yeah, this is scary. And I was shaking. I don't think she realized it, but I was shaking like crazy. It takes me a while to kind of like relax. Even then, once in a while, you still get scared from it. I'm not a very much a big speaker when it's come to things like that. But I think it's fun, especially I'm talking to women and I love supporting women. I think that's what's kind of get me relaxed, because I'm more like learning about your business and then the things that you are doing, which is I find fascinating for me. Like to see other women doing great works. It's like, oh, I'm not alone. There's other women out there. So.
Yeah. And I think that's also one really cool thing with starting a business is it does force you into a lot of things that you may be uncomfortable with. So it's really good to like grow because you are like forced to work on those things that you're like, I could kind of avoid this.
How do I not do this? Well, you do need to do it if you want to grow your business. Really?
Yes. part of marketing your business. So.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. So, How do you balance work and personal life? And then what do you do to recharge and stay motivated?
Yeah, so my family is really important to me. So we have also 2 border collies and 2 cats. So the border collies really keep me active. There's really no day off. Like if I don't walk them one day, that's just going to be chaos later. And so in the winter too, we do a lot of backcountry skiing. And again, we bring the dogs. So it's, you're outside in nature and they get a lot of exercise and we can wear them out. And then I also do a lot of kayaking and I love playing soccer. We'll have like pickup soccer games. And then I'm also a classically trained violinist. So I'll sometimes just growing up, my violin teachers would never let me they never really wanted to have me jam like to rock music or something, but so I'll actually like play music and then jam to it. And it's kind of like
that I would love to hear.
Yeah. And then I also love reading. Like I'm my happiest when I'm just surrounded by books. And I read a lot of business books and like personal finance books and then a lot of fiction. And I love like learning about other perspectives. So books are really important to me. And they also do keep me motivated.
That's true. You get to learn something new.
Yeah.
So now, what advice do you have for women who are looking to start their own business, particularly in the digital marketing industry?
Yeah. So I think for any woman looking to start her own business, don't let imposter syndrome hold you back and don't let fear hold you back. I think when I was first starting, there was a lot of like, well, I'm not really an expert in this. I mean, I've been doing it for, at that point, nearly 15 years. So like, I guess I did, like, as I went along, I realized, actually I maybe do know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you do.
But I think the fear initially does get in the way. And I think I honestly would have started years ago, if not for that. And so my biggest piece of advice would be to start before you feel like you're ready. Because like with most things in life, you learn the most by doing. So, and then in terms of digital marketing, I think one of the things that makes a successful marketer is the curiosity to learn. It's a field that is never stagnant. It's always shifting. Right when you're getting comfortable with something, it'll change. For me, that's why I love it. But I think having that excitement and really loving it and having that curiosity to learn more about digital marketing is really, really important. So,
yeah. And I think that also, I'm not a marketing person, by the way, but even my LinkedIn, I barely even use it. But I think that every day you open, like Twitter changed something, Facebook changed something, LinkedIn, they always changing something. It's like, how do you even stay
it's true
with them? It's for me, I feel like it's almost impossible. Something always new.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
But I appreciate learning more about you, Joanna, and in the company as well, and how you get into business, because I knew there was a story behind it that you probably just don't tell it too often. But it was there. But I do hope that I know that you don't have that anymore, but if you can incorporate that to your new company right now, I think that's especially for women that don't know much about marketing, I think that's something that would be very valuable to them. And I look forward to keep reading about you and the great work you are doing.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.